Have you ever wondered why your neighbor practically ignores their garden all summer, yet hauls in wheelbarrows full of massive sweet tomatoes, while you're out there breaking your back every single weekend with almost nothing to show for it? It is incredibly frustrating, isn't it? Well, today, we are going to change your gardening life forever. Welcome back to the channel, friends. Today, I am revealing the absolute golden method of tomato planting. I am going to show you 3 completely ordinary things I put directly into the planting hole that make my tomatoes grow like crazy. And here is the wildest part. By doing this one simple task in the spring, you will practically eliminate the need to feed your plants for the rest of the summer. Yes, you heard me right. Less work, 0 expensive chemicals, and 3 times the harvest. Sounds too good to be true? Stick around, because the 3rd item on my list is going to completely shock you, and I guarantee you already have it sitting in your kitchen pantry right now. So, tell me in the comments before we start, what is your current go-to fertilizer for tomatoes? Let's see who is already on the right track. Before we drop these 3 secret weapons into the dirt, we need to understand a little bit about how a tomato plant actually thinks and operates. You see, a tomato plant is essentially a massive biological pump. Its entire mission in life is to pull water and nutrients from the soil, push them up through the stem, and turn them into heavy, seed-filled fruits. But here is the catch. A pump is only as good as its source. For decades, traditional gardening advice told us to plant the tomato and then pour liquid fertilizers on top of the soil all summer long. But let us think about that. When you pour food on the surface, where do the roots go? They stay near the surface, and surface roots dry out quickly in the hot summer sun, causing the plant massive stress. What we want is for those roots to dive deep, deep down into the cool, moist earth. To make them do that, we have to put the treasure buried at the bottom of the hole. We need to create an underground buffet that slowly releases everything the plant needs exactly when it needs it, from the moment it is planted until the last fruit is picked. Let us talk about the absolute core philosophy of the golden planting hole and why it is the ultimate secret of lazy gardening. Most people think that gardening means breaking your back every single weekend, constantly mixing liquid fertilizers, carrying heavy watering cans, and praying that your plants will survive another week. But what if I told you that the smartest thing you can do is to front-load your effort on the very first day? Think of your tomato planting hole as a bank account. If you make a massive deposit on the day you open the account, the interest will pay out all summer long. This is exactly what we are doing here. By creating a nutrient-dense, perfectly balanced environment right where the roots are going to grow, we are essentially building an all-inclusive resort for our tomatoes. You put the plant in, close the soil, and your job is 80% done for the entire season. The roots will dive down into this rich pantry we have prepared, and they will find absolutely everything they need to build thick stems, dark green leaves, and eventually a massive amount of heavy fruits. We are completely flipping the script on traditional gardening. Instead of reacting to problems and deficiencies later in the summer when the plant is already stressed, we are preventing those problems from ever happening. This smart approach saves you countless hours of exhausting labor in July and August, allowing you to actually sit back in a chair, sip your cold tea, and just watch your tomatoes grow like absolutely crazy. The secret lies in understanding the biological engine that operates right beneath our feet, deep in the dark soil. To truly master lazy gardening, you have to think like a tomato root. Imagine these roots as tiny, blind explorers navigating through a vast underground cavern. When you just dig a plain hole and stick a plant in the ground, those roots have to travel incredibly far and work exhausting overtime just to find the basic building blocks of life. It is like making them walk 20 miles through a desert just to get a sip of water and a cracker. But when we use our golden method and place these 3 specific items right at the bottom of the planting hole, we are essentially building a 5-star buffet right next to their bed. The roots wake up, stretch out, and immediately hit a rich vein of pure, accessible energy. This creates an explosive chain reaction. Because the plant does not have to waste its early energy searching for food, it channels all of that saved power directly into upward growth. The stalk becomes thicker than a broomstick. The leaves expand like solar panels to catch the sun, and the immune system of the plant becomes practically bulletproof. We are not just feeding the plant, we are hacking its natural growth cycle to our advantage. Now, it is time to bust one of the biggest myths in the gardening world. We have all seen those beautifully edited videos where someone just digs a shallow little scoop in the dirt, pops a frail tomato seedling in, pats it down, and suddenly they have a jungle. Let me tell you a secret. That is a complete fairy tale. The myth of the shallow planting hole is the #1 reason why so many backyard gardeners fail and end up frustrated. Tomatoes are entirely unique in the vegetable kingdom because they have the magical ability to grow adventitious roots all along their main stem. If you bury a tomato deep, every single tiny hair on that buried stem will transform into a thick, powerful root. Therefore, our golden method starts with a hole that is at least 10 to 12 inches deep. We want to bury that plant right up to its top leaves. This deep trench is the foundation of our entire strategy. If you do not dig deep enough, our 3 secret ingredients will not have enough space to work their magic, and the roots will not have the room they need to expand. So, grab your shovel, forget the shallow little scoops, and let us prepare a proper deep vault for our tomato treasure. Are you ready for the very first item we're going to drop into our golden hole? It is something you probably throw in the trash every single morning after breakfast. I am talking about crushed eggshells. Now, hold on. Do not roll your eyes just yet. I know you have probably heard about eggshells before, but almost everyone uses them completely wrong. Most people just toss half a broken shell on top of the soil and wonder why nothing happens. Eggshells are pure, unadulterated calcium carbonate. Think of calcium as the steel beams and concrete foundation for your tomato plant's cellular structure. Without enough calcium, the cell walls of the plant literally collapse under stress. When we place a generous handful of properly crushed eggshells directly at the absolute bottom of our deep planting hole, we are laying down a slow-release calcium mine. As the soil microbes slowly break down these shells over the next few months, they release a steady, continuous stream of calcium right into the deepest root zone. It is like an intravenous drip of pure strength for your plants, building stems that can withstand heavy winds and supporting branches that will soon be loaded with heavy, juicy tomatoes without snapping. But how exactly do we prepare these eggshells so they actually work? This is where the lazy gardener gets smart. If you put whole shells in the hole, they will just sit there like little plastic cups for the next 5 years, doing absolutely nothing for your current harvest. The secret is surface area. You need to collect your eggshells over the winter, rinse them out, and let them dry completely. Then you crush them. I am not talking about just breaking them in half. I mean, you need to smash them down until they are the size of coarse sand or even a fine powder. You can use a rolling pin, an old coffee grinder, or just put them in a thick bag and stomp on them. When you grind them down this fine, you are exposing thousands of microscopic edges to the soil bacteria. This turns a useless piece of garbage into a highly reactive, fast-acting mineral supplement. I usually drop about 2 large handfuls of this crushed eggshell powder right into the deepest part of the hole. This powdery layer becomes the bedrock of our golden method, patiently waiting at the bottom to provide that structural integrity exactly when the plant begins to set its heavy fruit in the middle of summer. Let us talk about the ultimate nightmare for every tomato grower, the one thing that breaks our hearts in late July. You go out to the garden. You see a massive, beautiful green tomato ripening on the vine. Your mouth starts watering, but when you turn it over, the entire bottom is black, rotten, and sunken in. This is called blossom end rot, and it ruins millions of tomatoes every single year. Most garden centers will try to sell you expensive chemical sprays to fix this, telling you it is a disease. But let me tell you the absolute truth. Blossom end rot is not disease at all. It is a calcium deficiency, pure and simple. The plant was growing so fast that it literally ran out of building materials to finish the bottom of the fruit. But here is the beauty of our golden method. By putting those crushed eggshells deep in the hole on day 1, you are completely bulletproofing your garden against blossom end rot. Because the calcium is right there at the deepest root level, the plant never experiences a shortage. It has a constant, reliable supply of structural material exactly when the fruits are expanding the fastest. You will never have to throw away a rotting black tomato again. Moving on to our second secret ingredient, and this one is an absolute powerhouse. It is an ancient homesteading secret that our grandparents used religiously, but somehow modern convenience made us forget about it. I am talking about pure natural wood ash from your fireplace, fire pit, or wood stove. Now, you must make absolutely sure this is pure wood ash, no charcoal briquettes, no treated lumber, just natural wood that has burned down to a fine gray powder. Wood ash is the lazy gardener's equivalent of liquid gold. While the eggshells provide the structural calcium, the wood ash brings the heavy artillery, potassium, and phosphorus. Think of potassium as the transportation highway system inside the plant. It regulates water flow, moves sugars around, and is the absolute key to producing tomatoes that are incredibly sweet and flavorful. If you want tomatoes that taste like pure summer sunshine instead of watery supermarket cardboard, potassium is your best friend. Dropping a small scoop of wood ash into the planting hole guarantees that your tomatoes will have the energy they need to produce massive blooms and set a record-breaking amount of fruit. There is a fascinating chemical magic that happens when wood ash meets garden soil, and understanding this is what separates the masters from the amateurs. Most backyard soils, especially those that have been covered in pine needles or heavy oak leaves, tend to become slightly acidic over time. Tomatoes tolerate slight acidity, but if it drops too low, the soil locks up its nutrients. It is like putting a padlock on the refrigerator. The food is in there, but the plant cannot eat it. Wood ash acts as an organic sweetening agent. It gently raises the pH of the soil directly around the root zone, effectively picking the lock on that refrigerator. Suddenly, all the locked-up nutrients in your native soil become instantly available to the tomato plant. It is a dual-action miracle. The ash provides its own massive dose of potassium and trace minerals like magnesium and iron, while simultaneously unlocking the existing nutrients in your dirt. This means you are getting double the fertilizing power without spending a single penny at the garden center. This is the very definition of smart, lazy gardening, using natural chemistry to do the heavy lifting for you. We need to clear up another massive misunderstanding right now, the myth of nitrogen. If you go to a big box store and buy a generic synthetic fertilizer, it is usually packed with enormous amounts of nitrogen. Nitrogen makes things turn green and grow tall. And yes, a young tomato plant needs some nitrogen to grow its initial leaves. But here is the danger. If you pump your tomatoes full of nitrogen all summer, you will end up with a magnificent 10-foot-tall bush of gorgeous dark green leaves and absolutely zero tomatoes. The plant gets lazy and decides it just wants to make leaves instead of reproducing. This is why our wood ash is so incredibly vital. Wood ash contains almost zero nitrogen. By focusing our whole preparation on the potassium and phosphorus found in the ash, we are sending a very clear chemical signal to the plant. We are telling it, do not just build leaves, build flowers, and turn those flowers into massive fruits. We are programming the biology of the plant for maximum yield from the very first day. The potassium acts as the master conductor, orchestrating the shift from leafy growth to aggressive, non-stop fruit production. However, with great power comes great responsibility. You must be incredibly careful with how you apply wood ash in our golden hole method. Because wood ash is highly concentrated and alkaline, you cannot just dump a whole bucket of it in there. If you use too much, or if you let the bare roots of your baby tomato seedling touch the raw ash directly, you will cause severe chemical burns to the plant, completely destroying it before it even begins to grow. The secret is precise measurement and proper layering. I use exactly one small handful, which is about half a cup of wood ash per planting hole. No more, no less. I sprinkle this fine gray powder directly over the layer of crushed eggshells we already put down. Then, and this is the crucial step, I use my trowel to gently mix the ash and the eggshells into the bottom inch or two of the soil inside the hole. We want it blended like spices in a soup, not sitting in a concentrated pile. This creates a safe, buffered zone of intense nutrition that the roots will eventually grow into as they mature and become strong enough to handle the rich diet. And now, we have arrived at the third item. This is the one that is going to make you scratch your head, but I promise you, it is the absolute game changer of this entire system. The first two items, the shells and the ash, feed the plant and balance the soil chemistry. But the third item feeds the soil itself. Are you ready? It is a handful of ordinary uncooked rolled oats. Yes, you heard me correctly. The exact same oatmeal you eat for breakfast is the final mind-blowing secret to the golden planting hole. I know it sounds completely crazy. You are probably wondering why on earth we are putting breakfast cereal into a vegetable garden. But remember, we are practicing smart, lazy gardening, and that means we want nature to do the work for us. When you drop a handful of dry oats into the dark, damp environment of a planting hole, you are detonating a biological explosion of beneficial activity. The oats do not directly feed the tomato plant. Instead, they serve as the ultimate feast for the invisible army that lives in your soil. Let us dive deeper into why these simple oats create such an unbelievable miracle underground. Your garden soil is not just dead dirt. It is a living, breathing ecosystem packed with billions of beneficial bacteria and mycorrhizal fungi. These microscopic workers are the ones responsible for breaking down complex organic matter and delivering it to the roots of your plants in a form they can easily absorb. But in the early spring, when the soil is still waking up, this microbial army is starving and sluggish. By dropping a handful of oats into the hole, you are providing a massive, easily digestible source of complex carbohydrates. It is like throwing a giant pizza party for the soil microbes. The bacteria and fungi population absolutely explodes in size and activity within days. As they devour the oats, they multiply rapidly, and in doing so, they create an incredibly rich bioactive zone directly beneath your tomato plant. This supercharged fungal network physically attaches itself to your tomato roots, effectively acting as an extension of the root system, pulling in water and nutrients from far beyond what the plant could reach on its own. But the magic of the oats does not stop with microscopic bacteria. There is another, much larger guest that is going to attend this underground feast: the earthworm. Earthworms are the undisputed champions of the lazy garden. They aerate the soil, improve drainage, and their castings are the most perfectly balanced, nutrient-dense natural fertilizer on the planet. And guess what? Earthworms absolutely go crazy for decaying oats. By putting oats in the bottom of your planting hole, you're essentially ringing a dinner bell that echoes through the entire garden. Earthworms will migrate from all directions to reach that specific spot. As they tunnel their way toward the oats, they loosen the hard soil, creating perfect little highways for your tomato roots to follow. When they arrive and eat the oats, they deposit their incredibly rich castings right at the base of your plant. You are tricking nature into building an automated, self-sustaining fertilizer factory and soil aeration system directly under every single tomato plant, completely for free, using a few cents worth of breakfast cereal. Now, let us step back and look at the magnificent synergy of our three ingredients. This is not just about putting three random things in a hole. It is about how they interact and empower each other. Think of it as a perfectly balanced recipe. The eggshells provide the long-term structural calcium, preventing rot and building strong bones. The wood ash provides the immediate potassium punch, unlocking soil pH and preparing the plant for massive fruit production. And the oats act as the biological ignition switch, firing up the microbes and worms that will process the ash in the shells. The microbes feed on the oats, which gives them the energy to break down the tough eggshells faster, while the ash sweetens the environment to make it the perfect home for the worms. It is a continuous, self-feeding loop of fertility. The roots of your tomato plant are going to sit directly on top of this reactor. As the roots grow deeper, they will encounter this bustling, nutrient-rich metropolis. The result is a plant that grows with a vigor and health that you simply cannot achieve with synthetic liquid fertilizers poured on the surface. This synergy completely destroys the myth of constant summer feeding. The traditional garden industry wants you to believe that you need to buy their blue water every 2 weeks and spray your plants down. They want you trapped in a cycle of dependency. But the golden method breaks those chains. Because we have front-loaded the hole with slow-release calcium, rich potassium, and a booming microbial colony, your tomato plant has a constant, steady diet for the next 4 months. It will never experience the boom and bust cycle of liquid fertilizers where it gets a massive sugar rush of food and then starves 2 weeks later. This steady diet creates a plant that is incredibly robust and resistant to stress. You can literally plant your tomatoes using this 3-ingredient method in May. Apply a good thick layer of mulch on top to keep the moisture in, and practically ignore them when it comes to feeding for the rest of the summer. Your only job will be to water them deeply when it gets dry, tie them up as they turn into giant monsters, and figure out what to do with all the tomatoes you are going to harvest. So, how exactly do we assemble this masterpiece? The order of operations is vital to protect the tender roots of your new plant. First, dig your hole deep, at least 10 inches. At the very bottom, drop in your 2 handfuls of crushed eggshells. Next, add your half cup of wood ash. Now, take your trowel and mix the ash and shells into the bottom dirt. Next, drop in your handful of rolled oats. Now, here is the most critical step to avoid burning your plant. You must add about 2 inches of plain, unamended garden soil back into the hole on top of our mixture. This creates a safety buffer. You never want the bare roots of your seedling touching the raw ash or the fermenting oats directly. Finally, take your tomato plant, pinch off the bottom few sets of leaves, and lower it gently into the hole so it rests on that safety layer of soil. Fill the rest of the hole with your regular dirt, burying the stem deep. You have just built a multi-story house for your tomato with a blazing furnace of nutrition safely located down in the basement. The absolute final step of planting is watering, and it is here that the magic truly begins. When you water a newly planted tomato using the golden method, you are doing much more than just giving the plant a drink. You are activating the biological reactor we just built. You need to water the plant deeply and thoroughly immediately after planting. I am talking about soaking the ground until the water reaches all the way down to that bottom layer of shells, ash, and oats. As the water hits the oats, they begin to soften and swell, immediately attracting the first wave of beneficial soil microbes. The water also begins the slow process of dissolving the wood ash, spreading its sweet, potassium-rich goodness through the surrounding soil structure. This initial deep soaking is the spark that lights the fire. After this first massive watering, you want to back off. Let the top few inches of soil dry out over the next few days. This slight drying of the surface will force the new roots to aggressively dive downwards, chasing the moisture and heading straight toward the nutrient gold mine waiting for them at the bottom. Within the first 3 weeks of using this method, you are going to witness an incredible transformation that will make you a believer for life. While your neighbor's conventionally planted tomatoes might look pale, yellowish, and shocked by the transplant, yours are going to explode with vitality. Pay close attention to the main stem of the plant. Because of the deep planting and the incredible nutrient access, that stem will quickly become as thick as your thumb, glowing with a deep, vibrant forest green color. You will notice that the leaves are massive, thick, and perfectly formed, without any of the curling or yellowing that indicates stress or nutrient lockout. The plant will look incredibly sturdy, almost like a small tree rather than a fragile vine. This visual proof is the result of the plant easily accessing the nitrogen in your native soil, heavily supported by the root-boosting power of our fungal network and the structural strength of the calcium. It is building an unstoppable framework that will easily hold the massive weight of the fruit to come. There is a massive hidden bonus to this deep-hole, 3-ingredient method that becomes crucial during the scorching heat of July and August. Extreme drought resistance. Think about a typical hot summer week. The sun beats down, the top 3 inches of soil turn to dust, and plants with shallow root systems begin to wilt, panic, and drop their blossoms. But your tomatoes are playing a completely different game. Because we buried the treasure so deep, the roots of your plants bypass the danger zone entirely. They have grown deep into the subsoil, where the earth remains cool and slightly damp, even during a heat wave. Furthermore, the massive fungal network fed by our oats acts like millions of tiny microscopic sponges, holding on to moisture and delivering it to the roots on demand. Your plants will stand tall, green, and vibrant, while everything else in the neighborhood is drooping. This extreme resilience means you spend drastically less time dragging heavy hoses around the yard. You have successfully engineered a self-sustaining system that requires only occasional, deep watering, truly mastering the art of lazy, highly productive gardening. The absolute best part about this golden method is that it is not just limited to your tomatoes. Once you see the explosive, crazy growth this creates, you are going to want to use it everywhere. This exact same trio of crushed eggshells, wood ash, and rolled oats works absolute miracles for all the heavy-feeding, fruiting plants in your summer garden. Are you planting bell peppers or spicy jalapenos? Dig a deep hole and use the exact same recipe. The calcium will prevent rotting on the peppers, and the potassium will make them incredibly sweet and thick-walled. Are you putting in eggplants? They are notoriously hungry plants that absolutely thrive on the fungal network created by the oats. Even cucumbers and summer squash planted in hills will benefit massively from a scoop of ash and oats buried beneath them. By adopting this one simple, incredibly cheap, front-loaded method, you can transform your entire vegetable plot into a highly efficient, low-maintenance food forest. You are no longer just a gardener. You are a soil engineer working with nature instead of fighting against it. So, there you have it, the ultimate lazy gardener's secret to an unbelievable harvest. Who would have thought that a little bit of breakfast oatmeal, some trash from your morning eggs, and ashes from your fire pit could completely replace expensive, labor-intensive chemical fertilizers? By combining the long-term calcium of the eggshells, the sweet, fruit-boosting potassium of the wood ash, and the explosive biological power of the rolled oats, you are giving your plants the absolute best start possible. You are putting in 10 extra minutes of work on planting day to save yourself 10 weeks of agonizing labor and frustration during the hot summer. Your tomatoes are going to be huge. Your plants will be practically immune to blossom and rot. And you will finally get to experience the joy of a massive harvest with minimal effort. Thank you so much for hanging out in the garden with me today. If this golden method blew your mind, please hit that subscribe button right now, give this video a big thumbs up, and share it with a friend who struggles with their tomatoes. Now, I want to hear from you. Are you going to try the oatmeal trick this spring? Or do you have your own secret ingredient you put in the planting hole? Let me know down in the comments, and I will see you in the next video.